long before language becomes clear and before memory learns to organize itself into stories. The emotional world is already being written into the body in quiet, invisible ways. It's not written through logic, but through feeling, tone, absence, and repetition. What later becomes personality is often nothing more than adaptation dressed in familiarity, because childhood does not teach through lectures. It teaches through atmosphere. It teaches through what was allowed and what was avoided, through moments when comfort arrived and moments when it never did. The nervous system, still learning what the world is made of, begins to collect conclusions without words. It decides where danger lives, how love behaves, what closeness costs, and whether being seen is safe or risky. These conclusions do not fade with age. They become the background code beneath adult emotions, guiding reactions long after their origins are forgotten. They shape how attachment is approached, how conflict is interpreted, how silence is filled with meaning, and how the body reacts before the mind has time to decide. The brain that learned to survive in childhood does not retire when adulthood begins. It continues to operate beneath consciousness, loyal to the environment it first learned to navigate. It carries forward strategies that once kept the heart protected, even when those same strategies now quietly limit connection. A child who learned that love appears inconsistently may grow into an adult who craves intimacy but trusts it rarely. A child who learned that emotions were burdensome may become an adult who minimizes their own needs instinctively. A child who learned that approval ensured safety may become an adult who disappears inside pleasing. And none of this feels chosen. It feels natural, automatic, like instinct, because the body remembers what the mind cannot trace. What once kept the child safe becomes the adult's emotional reflex, playing out not as memory but as pattern, not as story but as sensation. It's in the tightening of the chest during closeness, in the urge to withdraw right when connection deepens, in the suspicion that follows peace, in the strange familiarity of distance. Even when the adult mind believes it is making fresh choices, the nervous system often follows roads laid decades earlier. Early emotional environments teach more than behavior. They teach expectation. They shape the nervous system's prediction of what comes next, whether care will last, whether conflict means abandonment, whether expressing need invites comfort or danger. These predictions quietly steer behavior without asking for permission, shaping how people enter relationships, how long they stay, how deeply they risk being known, and what they tolerate without question. This is why certain emotional experiences feel irresistibly magnetic, even when they bring pain, because they feel known. They echo the emotional architecture formed in the earliest years, and the body often mistakes familiarity for safety. Even when familiarity was forged in instability, criticism, or emotional absence, so people find themselves repeating the same emotional choreography in different faces, the same distance in new rooms, the same longing beneath different circumstances, wondering why the script never changes even when the setting does. Childhood does not simply pass. It embeds itself into the rhythm of desire, into the shape of fear, into the tempo of trust, and even into the way joy is allowed to linger or cut short. The brain, shaped by years of repetition, reinforces these pathways through neural economy, strengthening what is used most, even when what is used most is vigilance, self-erasure, or emotional retreat. The limbic system, having learned its early lessons well, continues to scan for familiar danger even inside safe situations, sometimes producing anxiety when none is present. distance where closeness is offered, or over-control when surrender would be harmless. And the prefrontal cortex may later construct explanations for these reactions, calling them standards, boundaries, logic, or independence, without ever recognizing that beneath these rationalizations lives an older emotional memory quietly protecting itself. Adaptation always arrives first as protection, and protection, when no longer examined, eventually disguises itself as identity. This is how childhood patterns become character, how survival strategies become personality traits, how emotional reflex becomes emotional law. This is also why change feels threatening even when current suffering is heavy. Because to change a pattern is to challenge the very strategies that once ensured survival. The nervous system resists this not out of stubbornness but out of loyalty to the past, to the version of the self that once needed those defenses to endure what could not be controlled. So inner conflict often emerges not between right and wrong, but between safety and growth, between what once kept the child secure and what the adult now quietly longs for. In this conflict, the heart may want closeness, while the body braces for loss. The mind may seek intimacy, while the nervous system anticipates overwhelm. And the person stands in the space between longing and fear, without fully knowing why both feel equally convincing. When the original emotional lessons were learned, there were no alternatives visible, no contrasting models available, only the reality of the environment and the interpretations a child could form within it. These interpretations, formed without power, without language, without full awareness, were never corrected by choice, only reinforced by repetition. So the adult now carries conclusions that were once reasonable but are now outdated, filters that once ensured survival but now distort present reality. Awareness does not arrive suddenly, it arrives quietly, often through exhaustion, through the weariness of repeating the same emotional cycles, through the ache of closeness that never fully settles, through relationships that feel familiar but never nourishing. In this quiet awareness, something gentle begins to shift, not through force or correction, but through observation. It happens through the slow recognition that what feels like instinct may actually be history, that what feels like personality may actually be memory repeating itself. This recognition does not erase the past. It simply invites a pause between impulse and reaction, a space where choice can begin to exist, where reflex once ruled. In that space, the adult nervous system slowly learns to experience safety without collapsing into defense, to tolerate closeness without preparing for escape, to express need without anticipating withdrawal. This learning does not happen through sudden transformation, but through slow, emotional retraining. It happens through small moments where the body is allowed to experience a different outcome than the one it predicted, through relationships that remain when fear expected departure, through expressions that do not result in punishment, through silence that does not result in abandonment. Each of these moments gently updates the internal map drawn in childhood, not by erasing it, but by expanding it. Over time, the emotional life becomes less of a reenactment and more of a dialogue between who the child had to be and who the adult is becoming. In this dialogue, the past is no longer the author but simply one of the influences, no longer the ruler but one of the voices. Slowly, the emotional script begins to loosen its grip, not because it is rejected, but because it is finally understood. Understanding allows compassion to replace confusion, allowing the adult to look back at the child not as broken, but as adaptive, not as flawed, but as intelligent in the only ways available at the time. This compassion softens the inner conflict between survival and growth, making room for change that does not feel like betrayal. So the emotional life no longer unfolds entirely inside the shadows of early patterning, but begins to include present reality as an equal participant. A reality where safety can be learned in new forms, where intimacy does not always echo danger, where rest does not always feel like vulnerability, and where love is no longer measured solely by what it costs. In this gentle widening of perception, the emotional script that once felt eternal begins to feel editable, not rewritten by force, but revised through lived experience, through awareness, through the steady accumulation of moments that contradict what the child once had to assume. Until slowly, the adult nervous system learns that the world it is living in now is not the same world that shaped it long ago. And the emotional life, once silently authored by the past, begins to include the present as a co-writer, allowing connection to feel less threatening, selfhood to feel less fragile, and the future to feel less predetermined by the invisible agreements formed in rooms that no longer exist.